All right, Chaz, let's get right to it. When the Reds won that series in Chicago, there was a single word that popped up multiple times from multiple people in the clubhouse after the game, after the second game when they clinched the series. It was most impactful, I thought, to hear it from new Red Zack Littell. Impactful because he still has that outsider's perspective that most of us lose track of over the course of the season. And the word he used, and that others used as well after that win in Chicago, was energy. In fact, Littell called it, quote, a special energy in the Reds dugout and in the Reds clubhouse. Now, look, he knows it. He's been on some good teams. He's pitched on some playoff teams. But we can talk about energy. In addition to energy, this Reds team needs an extended stretch of winning baseball. I think we can agree on that. So I ask you, what's one factor that could make that possible? An extended stretch of winning baseball for these Cincinnati Reds in the final 7 weeks of the season?
Well, it's the strength of the team sustaining. And I always go back to that stretch in July where it felt like the Reds were close, but they were dropping those winnable series, against the Nationals, against the Red Sox. There were opportunities. The Phillies, they didn't pounce against the Rockies and the Marlins. And I remember saying at that time, like, the strength of the team just needs to start leading and carrying the Reds to victories, and that's their rotation. They have nice pieces in the lineup. They've invested the most in is their starting group. And at the end of the day, it's just a starting group that has to be able to pick up the team on its back. And I'd like to kind of bring in the relievers here too, because there are pieces in this bullpen capable of doing that. And that was a big part of the theme in Chicago as well. So that's kind of what it's going to have to feel like, performances like Littell had on Tuesday, performances like Tony Santian, pitching like 7 times out of 8 days, basically is what it feels like, and getting the job done still. That's what it's going to have to be for this team.
Yeah, and Scott Barlow, 6 of 8. The Reds can pitch. They can pitch, and when you can pitch, you have hope. That's an undeniable fact about baseball. When you can pitch, you have hope. But that has to pair with all of the other things necessary for this team to find that winning stretch that right now is necessary at a very critical point in the season. Welcome into Power Stacks, proud members of the Growler Podcast Network. Coming up on the show, who are these guys handpicked to help by the Reds front office? What do we know about Zack Littell? What do we know about Key Brian Hayes and Miguel Andujar? Also, words of wisdom, Chaz, from dear old dad. We've all gotten that from time to time. We have words of wisdom as it pertains to the Francona family and football in Western Pennsylvania. And you got Snoop D-O-double-G. You're familiar, I hope, with Snoop D-O-double-G. All right,
I am, yes.
Okay, good. Just had to get that out there. Snoop and the band Train stopping by Great American Ballpark. 2 pretty big shows, but what kind of a show will the Reds roll out during a key stretch of games in their home ballpark coming up in the very near future? Those are good questions. All that's on the way, but first, I have to start with this. Tito called it out this week. Charlie Goldsmith's pipes are showing signs of fatigue. Tito called you out. So, Chaz, I just heard you a little bit. Let me hear some more. Give me an update. How are the pipes?
I'll let the listeners at home, this is an audio forum, judge for themselves. It very much comes and goes. So it was funny. My voice was totally fine, 100%, until on Tuesday. I go out and ask that first question to Tito, what do you got in the bullpen tonight or something like that? And it was, oh boy. It was like, sometimes like, I don't know.
Hear it
this is a very pro Lucas Sims podcast, but sometimes Art Warren was the king of this. And again, a very, very pro Art Warren podcast, but Art would come out of the bullpen and you could tell pretty quickly Art didn't have it today. That was me asking that first question to Terry Francona. It was a first pitch so bad that MLB would have investigated it for prop betting. Was how much I missed on the vocal range in my first question. And let's go. That time of year.
Now, listen, the layup response here for me is to throw out Peter Brady of the Brady Bunch, but I'm 1,000% certain that wouldn't land with you. That would just right here, just go right past.
Sorry.
So for most of the people listening or watching, they'll probably get that. But I got to say, this broadcasting thing for you, Chaz, the media conglomerate that Charlie Goldsmith is, might be spreading you a little thin, man. You might have to consider some workload management at some point.
It's funny.
For all the podcasts.
Because I haven't written this story yet, but I talked to Santian about how he manages the workload. And he says his secret is before every game, he does a sauna straight to the cold tub contrast. And he says that's it. That's how he's able to pitch every day. So maybe I just need to listen to the advice that I'm getting. Maybe it turns out this is just direct advice that I could be benefiting from what these different guys are doing. Maybe, Nick Martinez has the pulse monitor that he wears on his sleeve when he warms up. Maybe I need something like that.
Yeah. You're getting a lot of use out of the bullpen. And I have to add that today, for the YouTube audience, you also look like you're about to cut your 4th top 10 hit in the recording studio. If you had some cigarettes and liquor there, it'd be more believable. But you kind of look like you're in the studio today, no?
It's funny, too, when we were talking about this background. I had no idea. I'm in a hotel room in Philadelphia before tonight's Bengals preseason game. The background there's not real texture there. It's just printed texture, which, that's the music industry. And no, I didn't mean to. I shouldn't take a shot at the music industry. I've gotten into country music more recently. That's a development.
Okay. I don't know whether to follow up and say, let's follow up briefly on that, or realize that it can't possibly be a brief conversation. So maybe we'll hold that one, but I'm going to make a note.
Let's pick a Brian Hayes.
Okay. We're going to make a note and we'll tie all that together at some point in the near future, but hang on, man. You got to do something for the pipes, man. You're talking a lot on television and on YouTube. You got to take care of this. This is the moneymaker for you right these days. So be careful. And I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that you're fighting through, that you're playing hurt today. All right. That starts us off. Let's get to the leadoff spot, Chaz. And Tuesday in Chicago, I thought was kind of the snapshot of the trade deadline strategy for Nick Krall and Brad Metter. Zack Littell, one of his best starts of the season when the Reds desperately needed a start like that. So he showed up. Miguel Andujar paid off against a lefty starter right away. And Brian Hayes brought a barehanded highlight to third base for the Reds. And all of this happened in the same game. So let's start with Brian Hayes. It wasn't a one-run game at the time. That play wasn't make or break in terms of the outcome of the game. But what the Reds haven't had consistently at third base, what you have to have from that position is someone who makes every routine play. They make those plays and they make them confidently, and then they mix in the special or spectacular play that can be a difference in a game, that can be that out that you steal from the other team. Brian Hayes did that as a defensive replacement late in the game on Tuesday. What more are we feeling about what that might add to this team now down the stretch?
I think the coolest thing is, in an era of old school, new school debates, Brian's kind of as old school as it gets for the third base position. And I think watching him play, especially watching him play defense, and then watching him prepare, you very much feel that style, that presence. And of course, he has to hit more, and we'll spend the next 6 years talking about that. But this old school approach that Brian Hayes has, that was something I wanted to learn more about. So I went to Brian and I said, 1, what's your routine? And 2, what's your approach defensively that's worked so well for you? You're obviously a really good defender. I assume with that comes a pretty good routine. What is your routine to get ready to play such good defense?
I don't really do anything crazy. I think a lot of it more now that I've gotten older. It's was just really just kind of just paying attention to the details, just kind of putting in the same amount of effort as I do in the cage. Like whenever I'm taking my ground balls, whenever I'm playing catch, make sure I'm making good throws. But yeah, I mean, in season, there's not really a whole lot that's like crazy that you would. I mean, really, I just every once in a while do like just kind of short hops, just kind of look the ball in before ground balls. But for the most part, I just do the normal ground balls.
Did third base, like when you were a kid, just come easy to you?
I kind of grew up playing. I mean, I really played all over, but I played middle infield more than the corners. I'd probably say like around the time I was like 13, that was when I started playing third, like primarily, which I hated it at first just because it was so different than like shortstop, for instance. But yeah, my dad just said like probably with how my body was gonna be and stuff, like fill out, like I'd probably be a third baseman more than a shortstop. So yeah, I mean, I just from that point on, like I just pretty much just kind of listened to any tips like he had for me, obviously, because he played there, and kind of just over time got more comfortable as the years went on, and then once I got drafted, getting with like our infield coordinator and just picking up on little things as far as like just trying not to flip your glove open a lot, and kind of as you go in lower you need to be, little stuff like that. So but yeah, I mean, for the most part, I've never done anything that's like that you would something new or anything like that. Like a lot of the stuff I do is the same stuff I did whenever I was.
That might be the thing though. Like your dad played, you kind of do it the old school way.
Yeah. I think a lot of times a game is a game, and because of social media and stuff, people want to come up with something that looks exciting, or everyone's trying to find the next new thing type of thing. But for me, I just try to keep it fundamental and just pay attention to what I'm doing, feet work, closing my shoulder to first whenever I throw, just little stuff like that.
And that in itself is something I think we talked about on this show in April, which is around then, which is one of the biggest differences between the previous coaching staff and this coaching staff is, and again, there's no right way to do it. There's no perfect way to do it. But previously you'd see, all right, you had the ball or the machine that shoots out little, short flip ground balls. You had different training gloves that guys used to work on their hands. You saw a bunch of work on the side, kind of on one knee, different kind of stuff like that. This year, the Reds are just going out and fielding ground balls. And Brian Hayes says that's what he's been doing his whole life. So, again, definitely an old school feel, and it works for Brian.
I know you had a longer conversation with him, and one of the topics when the Reds made the deal is the fact that he has struggled with what he described as a chronic back issue over the years. What'd you get on that? How does he feel? How does he manage that?
He's felt like he's made some significant progress over the last year since the end of last season. And I guess, yes, the swing isn't there yet, and I'll circle back around to that, but he's been healthy all season. So that's good. He met with the specialist at the end of last season. He got, I believe, 20 to 30 exercise routine. This is the new school stuff. He is doing the new school stuff from a physical standpoint. Exercises, routine, program, that stuff became a 4 times a week thing that he did during the off season. Now during the year, he splits it up and it's more hyper focused. All right, I got to do this today. I got to do that today. Some chiropractic work has been a part of it. A big thing is aligning his hips and making sure those are, I don't know, at the levels they're supposed to be, or whatever that means. And then the other thing too is he also kind of moved to a two-handed follow through with his swing this year, because he felt like from a torque perspective that would help him out, stability, balance, impact on his back. And now again, he's not quite hitting well enough yet, so we'll see how he sticks with that, maybe as a long-term project, but he is feeling better from a management perspective about the back.
Listen, he had the error in his first game as a Red at third base, but I'm interested to watch as the rest of this season plays out. As we've watched all these games, there's been a lot of every time a ball's hit to third base, or not just third base, but there have been a lot of things that we've seen that have given people watching the Reds on a regular basis less confidence in this team defensively in a number of ways. If Ke'Bryan Hayes can bring some of that defensive confidence to that side of the Reds infield with Elly De La Cruz, and you balance that with how well Spencer Steer has played at the other corner on the infield, that can give games a different feel. That can give pitchers a different feel when they're out there, just knowing that that's behind them. And I think that's going to be the case for Ke'Bryan Hayes. If we go to Littell now, and if some people maybe were underwhelmed when the deal was announced, or unfamiliar might be a good word, with Zack Littell and who he is and what he's done when the Reds acquired Littell, what he did on Tuesday night in Chicago was a great start, and it was a season high for strikeouts, but it wasn't an outlier to this season for him. He pitched into the 7th inning, completed 7 innings, and that's the 6th time this season that he's thrown at least 7 innings, and you mix in a complete game in there from Zack Littell. Most of the numbers right now, some of the measurable numbers that you can look at, the basic numbers for a pitcher, he's slightly better than Brady Singer and Nick Martinez. So that's who he is. And if he can show more of what he showed Tuesday in Chicago, or get close to that, that's going to start to look like that in tandem with Nick Martinez, which was always in play with the Reds thinking at the deadline, that in tandem with that, and maybe the Reds rotation getting a little bit healthier, this looks like a good ad.
So we talked about Littell, since trade deadline of Palooza, and you do an even deeper dive on, or I did I'm sure you did as well. It did an even deeper dive on him when the Reds acquired him, but still I was underestimating him. What I saw was a Jacob Junis type, a Ben Lively type, and that's valuable. That's important. But what it turns out Littell has is he is a splitter. That's just a real thing. That wasn't as much on my radar until I saw it. The splitter's a real thing. That doesn't just make him a strike thrower, get you through a game, get you through a season type of guy. It gives him upside, might not be the right word, because he's not going to be a number 3 starter, but it gives him a weapon. And that's very important and very valuable for a guy who can also get you deep into games. So he's right there on that, 4th starter level, which is useful and valuable, and the depth and the way he saved the staff. He has answers, and that stuff I really underestimated until I saw him live.
Seems like a good dude in a small sample. Seems certainly to fit with what the Reds are trying to be right now. Quick updates on the rest of the rotation. The blister bother. I mean, that scares me. The blister for Nick Lodolo. Yeah. That's something that you can tell me it's going well and that it's recovering, but the fact that it showed up after he managed it all season long, that's a concern. I think the Reds continue to say, Terry Francona does, that they believe that he'll be ready to go as soon as he's able to be brought back, and that maybe he can get back going and not have that be an issue, but something to watch. And then the thing that's still out there is Hunter Greene. Where is Hunter Greene? How is he doing? When will the Reds be confident to bring him back to the big league level and put him in?
Let's start with Lodolo, because after he threw that complete game, we spoke about the story of his season to relitigate that. The story of his season has been the breaking ball. The breaking ball is his gift. That's his thing. That back foot breaking ball that you swing through. No one throws a breaking ball like that except for Chris Sale. Unbelievable when that pitch is firing. Again, it's what made him a first-round pick. It's what made him a top prospect. For the first couple months of that season, that breaking ball just wasn't snapping. And he was still fine. He was still doing okay. But the thermometer on Lodolo from fans, from people watching the Reds, was all right. He's not quite there yet, and it was because of the breaking ball. And so we talked a lot about this breaking ball, and there was a moment. It was like he got Tatis to swing through it when the Padres were in town. It's oh, okay, that's a great sign. And then I believe he did the same thing to Juan Soto, and it's that's an unbelievable sign. And then the breaking ball against Washington was maybe the best we've ever seen from him. 11 Ks versus the Dodgers. Perfect. Well, the breaking ball also causes and has always caused that blister issue for Nick Lodolo. So whenever he comes back, and ideally, and the plan is it'll just be short term, arguably even more important is how well is he spinning that breaking ball? Because if he's not spinning it well, then that's the Lodolo we saw in May and June, which again is fine. And hopefully it's the Lodolo we saw in May and June, not the Lodolo we saw in August last year, who, because of a previous blister, overcompensated, tweaked his grip, sprained his middle finger, season-ending injury. So this is all very important. Hunter Greene got a rehab start again on Friday. I do feel good about the trajectory and the path that he's on. I don't get the sense that they're even expecting this to be a long-term stay back in the rotation for Nick Martinez. I get the sense that that's the idea. So they're expecting at least one, probably both back soon. But with both these injuries, Greene suffered a grade 1 groin strain in May, and we're still talking about it. Lodolo's had blister issues going back to 2021. We're still talking about it. Each of these we'll see.
I would agree with that. And Nick Martinez, listen, he's being well compensated this season without question, but his availability, his versatility, his attitude, all those, cliche team type words that you want to use, they've been invaluable for the Reds. And
real quick, the one that we don't say enough is ability. I mean, he's just a good pitcher. Yeah. And we talk so much about the other stuff. I feel like that gets underblown.
Yeah. All right. Miguel Andujar is not going to play every day. He's not a high-end defender by any stretch. But we did see against a left-handed starter, he had a couple of hits in that game. One came against a right-handed pitcher, scored twice. Are you buying Miguel Andujar as helping this team in that way against lefties the rest of the way?
Well, we talked about it last week when they traded for him. The idea of that one heartbreaker against the Dodgers where they brought in Espinal against the lefty to get that big bases clearing hit. And that's just not SP's game. He gives the Reds something they didn't have. Miguel Andujar does. It's a very violent swing, which is pretty cool. Like he just kind of, I don't know, he's like a big guy. It's a unique approach and it's different. I think you can look at enough of the numbers and feel confident that he'll sustain enough of the production. They didn't give up a ton, so I feel good.
Get yourself some cold brew, man. You need it. All right. Take 5 for Chaz right now. But I
got through the talking point, didn't I?
You did. You finished the job. And are you impressed that the bell traveled this time? Did you notice?
I was just about to say something. Like that's not
what it's like to have that. Yeah, you know what it's like to have that in a suitcase, because there's no way that to get away from hearing that. It's just there. But it was important to me. I know it's important to you, important to the show. You have to make sacrifices sometimes. So the bell traveled this time, and I'd like to keep it that way.
We need some bell carrying case. I wonder if they make those.
Maybe, but I don't feel like we've gotten to that point. Time now for Tito's take, and I love things like this, and for people listening or watching, I love to kind of pull back the curtain on some of the things that you and I and people that cover the team on a regular basis see, and it becomes routine when you're in the clubhouse every day. But I really believe that people that listen or watch love to hear stuff like this. So you have to set the scene in Chicago and Wrigley Field, where despite the fact that the clubhouse and the dugouts have been remade recently in the last several years, they're still small. This is still a tight space. And so there are people standing in there when the clubhouse is open for media availability, and you look for players that you might get a word with that you're looking to talk to. There's always music. There's always television monitors. And on Tuesday, there happened to be on the monitors in the afternoon before the Reds' night game against the Cubs, the Little League World Series. There might be another sporting event on. This was the sporting event on that afternoon. And it catches all of us. We're watching the Little Leaguers. I noticed you and Nick Martinez having a conversation about the Little League World Series. And that conversation planted the seed and carried over into our time talking to Terry Francona. I'll let you pick that up from here.
Real quick, the pitcher who was on the mound for whatever team that
The big
pitching,
kid. Yeah.
Keep an eye on
Yes.
that kid. I have no idea what his name is or even remember what team he's on. But I'd like stock in that kid.
He's not hard to spot, though. He's the one or two kids every year in that tournament that you see that hit the growth spurt early. And literally, I don't remember how much they said he weighed. I think Nick Martinez blurted it out at some point. But he was literally facing a kid that weighed 88 pounds when they put his stats on the screen. And
he dropped a 3-2 breaking ball for a strike looking. It's like, what? Anyway,
12 years old.
Little League was on the mind. So I said, Tito, I'm sure you've spoken to kids over the years, your baseball manager, bring in, what's the advice you typically give to kids? And it was a fun conversation. So here's Terry Francona kind of picking that up.
Couple things. Being well-rounded is good. Like kids nowadays play one sport all year. By the time they get to be like 18, they hate it. I think you learn a ton of life lessons playing sports when you're kids. And then I always would tell them that being the best teammate is the best compliment you could give them, not the best player.
Do you play multiple sports?
Yeah.
What do you play?
Basketball and like golf, because my dad, I brought the release home to get for football, because everybody in West Pennsylvania plays football. I brought the thing to get your physical home. My dad was sitting like right where you are, and he looked. He goes, "Son, are you crazy?" He goes, "They'll kill you." So I played golf.
I believe that's exactly what my dad told me as well. When I came into, actually, that's a lie. I don't even think I ever even thought about playing football. But Terry Francona made the right moves. It all worked out for him. Baseball star, still a quality golfer to this day. And he spoke to some about the Western Pennsylvania football culture. He said that if his mom said, if you went to church, I'll make hors d'oeuvres for the Steelers game. And so that was cool. And then what I didn't realize until I then looked it up after was when Tito was a teenager, that's when Pittsburgh won 4 Super Bowls. So he had a heck of a team to watch there in Pittsburgh.
He was also the conversation about his dad and other sports and not playing football. He mentioned also that his boyhood home, that he would go in the basement all winter to throw baseballs. And so he mentioned there was a cinder block wall. I think we can all envision this, where young Terry Francona would go to throw in the winter when he couldn't get outside. He was not playing football, obviously. And he said when he went back years later as an adult to help his dad clean out the house, he went down to the basement and he could still see the marks on the cinder block wall where he would throw and hit and do all those things. But his advice about being well-rounded, I think, that's been – a lot of people have said that now to kind of steer people away from specializing, and it's hard to do that. Those kids in the Little League World Series, most of them probably spend most of the year playing baseball. But the advice, I think, is still sound. Having been in that culture a little bit with my kids, be well-rounded and enjoy it all. And I was glad to hear him say that.
Brian, what sports did you play?
Okay, so also setting the scene, tiny town in central Texas, Cameron, Texas, population 5,000 and something, but not much more than 5,000. If you can imagine, if you either read the book Friday Night Lights or watched the TV show, the movie to a certain extent, but that's kind of where I grew up, but on a smaller scale. Even Midland, Odessa Permian, the program that Friday Night Lights is based on, much larger than the town where I grew up. But high school football was king. That's what we did. We played. There were a couple of seasons. There was football season and there was the off season. We ran track to stay in shape for football. We played basketball after off-season football workouts. We didn't go to basketball practice until after off-season football workouts. So that's kind of what it was. So I played football. I played basketball. I ran track. Played baseball, but not into high school. I stopped playing baseball going into high school. Anyway, all of that to say, to this day, high school football is one of my passions, and I don't get to scratch that itch very much anymore, but high school football is one of my passions. It was then. We didn't even have soccer in this town, okay? So that kind of gives you some context. But I still, man, I love those days playing high school football in Texas, and I still get fired up about it. You?
Well, that's cool. I played baseball, basketball, and my best sport was tennis. It was my third favorite of the three, but it was my best sport. Baseball.
My high school girlfriend was a state medalist in tennis. So I hit a lot of balls, didn't really compete a whole lot, but I went out and practiced a lot with her.
My baseball career, and Reds players have asked, what I always say is I maxed out I got the best I could out of my career. And for me, that was hitting fifth at a Division III Cincinnati high school. Like, that was it. That was all I had. But I take a lot of pride. I really do take a lot of pride in it. The best baseball coach I ever worked with he had his own little hitting facility at the time in Cincinnati. Current Dayton Dragons manager, Vince Harrison, developed me into the hitter I was.
Yeah. And as we're thinking about the Pirates, brother of Josh Harrison.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. There's the bell that travels. It's time for the milestone of the week, the Reds milestone of the week. And that is going to be going back to Terry Francona and the long and storied career that he's had so far. We had Tito 2K a couple of weeks ago as he hit 2,000 wins. He just hit 2,000 wins plus 10, and that bumped him up a little bit higher on the all-time wins list, managerial wins list in Major League Baseball. He passed Leo DeRocher for number 12 all time. And now, Chaz, he's chasing a playoff team with a different team again for, he's done that throughout his career, and now he's chasing that in Cincinnati, but he does so with those skins on the wall as being one of the winningest managers in the history of this game.
I have a question for you. So here on the rundown, it says that DeRocher managed from 1939 to 1973, which I believe would be 34 years. Tito's at 30, but does 1990 or 29-ish, whatever, does 1997 to 2025 feel as big of a gap as like 1939 to like 1970? Like, doesn't that just feel like more time?
Right.
Yeah, it's like the same, but it just feels like 1939 to 1973. But I know it's a
much
couple
longer.
more.
Yeah,
but you get the point I'm making. It feels like there's a longer gap in between those age brackets, but there's not.
No question. It's all about context and in which era we have lived and continue to live. But I agree. It does seem backwards, but congrats to Tito. And here's hoping there are more wins to come for Terry Francona. Hey, this week's Reds milestone of the week is brought to you by Glenville Ave. And don't forget our friends at Glenville Ave, Chaz. They make the baby blanket designed by parents who want something better. You can check this out at the website. But what I'd like to point out is these blankets are built to last. They're double-stitched, reinforced corners. And with that in mind, they're designed to be passed down just like your favorite old glove or that signed baseball that you have that you want to pass down within your family. That's what these blankets are. You can help celebrate milestones and capture your baby's growth and achievements with these blankets. So if you're on the YouTube right now, you're taking a look at the website. I would encourage everyone to do that. The website is GlenvilleAveLLC.com. When you go there and take a look at the things that you can get, use the promo code STACKS for 10% off your first order. They are friends of the show, and we support them and hope you will as well. The good folks at Glenville Ave sponsoring our Reds milestone of the week. And if you'd like to partner with us on something similar, the email address to make that inquiry is powerstackspod@gmail. Powerstackspod@gmail. We can customize something to fit your business. We can do something cool. We can have some fun with it, just like we do with the good folks at Glenville Ave. And we thank them, Chaz, for their support. We hope you'll support them as well. All right, moving on now to Charlie's notebook. And in the notebook, that tattered, torn,
it's time for a
collection of paper It's looking rough, but that's okay. It's well used and well loved. In Charlie's notebook, I know there's some things on where the Reds are right now with depth and health. And from a Reds perspective, those two things are in pretty good shape right now. What kind of options does the manager have with the trade deadline additions and also mixing in some good health?
With a team that's essentially completely healthy from a position player standpoint right now,
right?
And with the depth, with Andujar's ability to punish left-handed pitchers like we've been talking about, you can and then one more thing as well, because they're healthy, they usually have an extra lefty on their bench. Like, for example, maybe it'll be Jake Fraley on their bench, who you could have, lefty comes in, Andujar pinch hits for Lux. Then when the right-handed reliever comes in, you swap Fraley for Andujar, etc. You get the points I'm making. But because of the options they have, you've got some very different situations that you can feel. Like, there was a spot the other day, and I forgot to write this one down, but it might have even been a perfect one was on Sunday in Bristol. And we'll get to Ke'Bryan Hayes in a second, but bases loaded for Ke'Bryan Hayes. How do you want to use your bench in that spot? You have real options, or maybe it is Matt McClain, viewing Matt McClain versus Jake Fraley or one of your Gavin Lux or one of your stronger left-handed hitters in one of those spots. The situations just feel a lot different now because you can be in there going to be much, much more aggressive in using their entire bench with options that they just didn't have.
Yeah, and so you said circle back to Ke'Bryan Hayes. You want to make sure that he's on the field to make those defensive plays we talked about. But how will you potentially, or how might Tito work around some of the offensive shortcomings without sacrificing the whole reason they got him, and that's defense?
It's almost become the absolute inverse of what was going on with Noelvi Marte when they were pulling him for defense.
The inverse, yeah.
And now Ke'Bryan Hayes is 28, Noelvi's 23, but Ke'Bryan's under contract for just as long as Noelvi Marte. Ke'Bryan Hayes is a part of this young core, and in your first week with a new team, you don't want to lose a guy by pinch hitting for him. You want to build up that confidence and that trust. But because of the usable bench they have, and now basically keeping Espinal on the roster as well to be almost a defensive replacement insurance for however you want to use the rest of your bench to pinch hit for these guys, that is one that's on my radar. At what point do they start hitting for Ke'Bryan Hayes more? Again, I'm all for building up that confidence, but it's a different style of conversation, again, that you had been having because of where the Reds are at from a depth standpoint.
It is going to be interesting, but you have depth and health at this point of the season. You have a lot, and you have pitching. You have a lot. So as the Reds try to face these challenges, let's talk a little bit about the schedule. You have 4 games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, the one caveat to what most people would immediately think 4 games against the Pirates is, to this point of the season, the Reds have avoided Paul Skeens. You don't avoid Paul Skeens in this series. The Reds are going to have to face Paul Skeens. But here's an opportunity against the Pirates, which, by the way, are playing better baseball. They just ripped off a nice winning streak not long ago. And so we'll see, but it is the Pirates. You have to beat the teams you need to beat. And then you go home and you headline some games with Snoop Dogg and Train. But you look at the schedule, and it's the first place Phillies, and it's the no one can stop them Milwaukee Brewers. This next 10 days, you're looking at a stretch of games. The season's not over after the Milwaukee series, but you're looking at a stretch of games that could shape and determine to some degree what the rest of the season looks like after that.
I mean, you said it at the top of the show. At some point, this is a team that's going to have to go on a run, especially when you look at the pitching. I believe Keller's pitching game 2. Pitching. The Pirates will throw at the Reds. The Phillies, I don't even know who's starting that season, but the Phillies will definitely be throwing some great pitches at the Reds. I have no idea who's starting for Milwaukee after that, but I can guarantee you the Brewers are going to be throwing some great pitching at the Reds.
The point with Milwaukee is it doesn't matter. For some reason, this team with different players and new play. This team, Sean Casey said The Brewers remind him of fire ants. You step in them and then you can't get rid of them. They're just all over you. That's this Brewers team, and all they do is continue to win.
Could have just went with regular ants. One of the lower tier Pixar movies. A very deep Pixar movie, very profound Pixar movie, but I wouldn't say it's the most well executed. Anyway,
those of us from Texas, if you're from Texas, fire ants strike a specific feeling at the very mention of fire ants. So I like that one.
The Reds are going to have to outpitch their competition here. And this is an ultimate rotation upside / rotation back end of the bullpen with your Ashcraft, Santi, and Pagan, etc. This is an ultimate stretch for those guys. With the pitching you're facing, with the offense that's had its ups and downs, have to take care of business against Pittsburgh. And I know it's a cliche thing to say. Like, I usually don't go into tropes like that, but I really believe that based on where they're at this point of the season, how they've struggled against bad teams on their schedule, what's coming up next. They're all important, but the rotation, especially, it's kind of time for them and for the back end of this bullpen.
All right. Final thought, Chaz. You recently, as we always mention, we're proud members of the Growler Podcast Network. And you recently on one of the other shows had an experience, a frightful experience in which you believe you saw a being or felt the presence of a being. The word ghost is being used. So if you're listening or watching this,
do you think I'm crazy?
Check that out. I don't think you're crazy, but as I say these things, I'm starting to wonder about the timing, and I'm wondering if it's coincidence or not that as you had this experience with some other being of some other type, that's right about the time you started to lose your voice. Coincidence or not?
I'm going to go with that coincidence because, again, the presence I felt, and like I really mean this, wasn't negative. Like, it was just something else going on. So if you haven't heard the story, we're recording the Growler. Jay's making a great point about Demetrius Knight, and the bathroom door swings open one way. And
where were you?
I'm at the Hilton Garden Inn in Evanston. I'm kind of back in the back corner recording the show. The bathroom door opens going one way. The main front locked door to my room opens going the other. And there's just a swirling. And it really felt like there was another presence in the room. And so, you can see the video. Like, my jaw drops. I'm stunned. I've got the face of a man who's seen a ghost. And it was an experience. And we have it on tape.
And you've since lost your voice.
He wasn't out to get me, though. We're cool. Me and the ghost, we're cool.
You felt cool about that. Well, go check out that part of the show. And Chaz, I would encourage you, whiskey, honey, hot lemon tea, all those things. You got to do something, man. You fought through today. You played through an injury, but you're playing hurt. You got to get better. So go take care of those pipes. All right.
Thank you to everyone listening for suffering through this with my voice and where it's at. But hopefully we had some laughs.
There was no suffering. We're just all concerned about you, Chaz. We got to take care of you. So go take care of yourself. Enjoy the next couple of days where you are. And as we continue to follow these Cincinnati Reds, keep it here with Power Stacks. It's going to be a good conversation one way or the other. And we hope you're along for the ride and enjoy the conversations that we have. So for Chaz, for producer Kent, for Paul Daner Jr., thanks for checking out the show, and we'll see you next time.